I recently had a very interesting conversation with someone who took a gap year between graduating from high school and college. And then we started discussing the merits of that and the value of it to the individual. Now, I will confess that I have long been a fan of the gap year, or even longer, perhaps maybe multiple years. But I've also been a strong proponent of the need to go to college. That is, the value that it brings to an individual. And my reason for being a proponent of a gap year or more is that one, the educational experience in college or higher education seems to have greater effect or be more valuable when an individual has some experience or exposure to make what they're learning more relevant. And that oftentimes happens, or at least is furthered to some extent, during that gap year period. So in the United States, the gap year is not that frequent or commonly employed the way it is in Europe. In Europe, it's quite common for someone to graduate from what their equivalent of high school is and perhaps travel for a year or do other things that expand the individual, such as taking an internship or trade apprenticeship or something like that that helps them grow as an individual. But probably the most common thing that individuals do is travel and see new places and experience new things. Well, I've long been a proponent that higher education, if it's working efficiently and effectively, should have the purpose of making an individual more well rounded. And what do I mean by that? I mean that individuals should have a better understanding of other people. They should have a better understanding of situations or scenarios. And this generally comes from recognizing various causes and effects. That is, what is the cause of a given situation or scenario? What is the effect on others or the situation or scenario of different things happening? And this really comes down to understanding other people, how they perceive a situation, why their opinion towards a given course of action or what is right or wrong, where that comes from, what is the genesis behind it, and how does that affect their actions or feelings in a given situation or circumstance. So, the better that you are able to understand other people, generally the more efficient and effective you can be in this life that we have where we interact with others. So, higher education plays a part in exposing you to areas that you otherwise would not have exposure to. That is, understanding the literature and the history behind that and the effect that it has on individuals and cultures over time or throughout history. Looking at history and seeing how cultures evolved, not just looking at specific dates and memorizing what happened at a given time, but understanding the significance of it, what it meant for human civilization, populations, during given time periods and how that ultimately affected who we are as a people today. And you can do this analysis or apply this to any course or course of study or topic you would pursue in higher education. So, in summary, this learning or information or knowledge that you acquire makes you well rounded, better able to understand and deal with other people. The same is true again with traveling, with doing things that expand your understanding of how things work, how other people see things. So you again become a more well rounded individual. Now, many people may argue that a gap year wastes time, or even longer than a gap year, for example, is a waste of time. That is, you're not moving your career forward. If you have an understanding of what you want to do, and your primary objective as a person is to achieve that, then you're wasting time towards that ultimate goal. And this may be a sound argument or logic if your primary focus is that one thing. If you don't believe there is a need or value in relating well to others in society, that is, your primary purpose is to achieve that thing that you want or you desire. That is, you have no duty or obligation to others to expand yourself to understand their way of thinking or their point of view. Well, I would argue and make the point that today's political environment demonstrates that this belief, that self focus, and a lack of attention or appreciation for the views or the reasons for the views of others can often lead to problems that extend far beyond yourself and can cause problems for the entire community that will ultimately affect the individual. But again, that's kind of the point of this discussion. The question is a lot deeper than should we simply take a year to do things before we go on to higher education. The question really is, what are the things that we can do that are valuable to ourselves and valuable to society that will ultimately help us in the process of understanding other people so that we as a society can interact and become, well, more efficient and effective in living together, in building society, in doing all the things that individuals do in any given population or civilization. So, if you have thoughts on this, whether it's about the benefits or detriments of taking a gap year in higher education, or whether you have an opinion on whether there is value in education in itself, please jump down in the forum. We'd love to hear your opinion. Please go over to thebusinessprofessor.com, start a discussion in one of those forums. But regardless, as always, I hope to see you around the platform soon. Until then, take care.